Right. So get ready because today um, we are diving deep
Into some,
into stuff.
seriously thought-provoking stuff.
Yeah.
We're talking consciousness, non-duality, all that good stuff. And, you listeners have sent in a whole bunch of excerpts from Rupert Spira's The Ashes of Love.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, these sayings, they're packed with wisdom.
They really are. It's like Spira took, like a whole philosophy textbook
Yeah.
and just like distilled it down
Yeah.
into these potent little nuggets
Yes.
of insight. And he's drawing on ancient traditions, especially Advaita Vedanta. But the thing is, he makes it feel so relevant
I know.
to modern life.
Yeah, and the way the book's structured with 280 short sayings, it's perfect for like reflection. You can really savor each one. So what stood out to you as you were going through these?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, but I think it all boils down to these like fundamental questions that Spira keeps kind of circling back to.
Like what is our true nature? Are we really just, this jumble of thoughts and emotions, or is there something more fundamental underneath?
Yeah.
And like, if so, how does that understanding change how we experience things like happiness and love, and even our connection to the world around us?
Okay, so big questions.
Big questions.
Definitely. But I have to admit, sometimes these philosophical concepts,
Yeah.
they can feel a little
Abstract.
abstract. Yeah, like how do I actually apply this to my daily life?
I think that's fair. Yeah, it's not always obvious, but I think that's where Spira's use of metaphors and analogies really shines.
I agree.
Like, for example, he talks about awareness
Yep.
being like the vast open sky, and our thoughts and feelings are like clouds passing through it.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean, though? Is he saying that I should just, ignore my feelings?
No, not exactly. It's more about like shifting your perspective. Think about it. The sky doesn't judge the clouds.
Right.
It just allows them to be. So what Spira is suggesting is that we can do the same with our internal world. Instead of getting, caught up in the storm of our thoughts and emotions, we can learn to observe them from a place of spacious awareness.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be useful. So step one, become aware of the clouds, so to speak.
Yeah.
What's next?
So Spira talks about this process called neti-neti, which means not this, not this.
Okay.
It's like a way of distinguishing your true self, this pure awareness from all the things that we usually identify with. It's like a mental exercise.
Yeah.
A way of peeling back the layers.
Okay, can you give me an example? Like, how would I actually use neti-neti?
Okay, so think of something you strongly identify with, like your job, your personality, even your body.
Okay.
Now say to yourself, I am not this job. I'm not this personality. I am not even this body. Keep going.
Wow.
Stripping away those labels, what's left?
That's trippy. I'm not sure what's left. A big question mark.
Exactly. And that question mark, that sense of, I don't know, that's the doorway to discovering your true nature. Spira would say that that's the space of pure awareness, uncluttered by all the things we normally cling to.
Yeah.
He actually says in saying #6, we are the open, empty, allowing presence of awareness in which the objects of the body, mind, and world appear and disappear.
So it's like, I'm not my thoughts. I'm the space in which those thoughts arise.
Exactly.
That's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is. And, this leads us directly into one of Spira's most central ideas, which is the illusion of the separate self.
Okay.
He argues that this sense of being a separate me locked inside our heads is actually a construction, a kind of mental habit.
Wait, so you're saying me isn't real? There's a lot to process.
It's definitely mind-bending. He's not saying that our individual experiences aren't real,
Okay.
but rather that the sense of a solid, separate me that's experiencing them is an illusion. It's like a character in a movie mistaking itself for the screen.
Right.
And that illusion of a separate self, as convincing as it may seem, that's actually at the root of a lot of our suffering.
Okay, that's a pretty bold statement. How does a mistaken sense of self, how does that cause suffering?
Well, think about it. If we're clinging to this idea of a separate me, then we're constantly trying to protect it, defend it, and make sure it gets what it wants. We become obsessed with controlling our experience, pushing away, what we don't like, grasping for what we think will make us happy.
So it's that resistance to what is, that constant striving, that's what creates the suffering. Like we're always at war with reality instead of just accepting it.
Exactly. Spira says, in saying #18,
Okay.
the separate self is not an entity, it is an activity. The activity of resisting what is present and seeking what is not present.
Okay.
And that resistance is what keeps us trapped in this cycle of dissatisfaction.
That really resonates with me. I know I've spent way too much time worrying about the future, regretting the past, instead of just being present in the moment.
We all do it. But what Spira is pointing to is that, our true nature, this pure awareness, doesn't resist. It just simply allows experience to unfold just as it is.
So if the illusion of the separate self leads to suffering, what's the antidote? Like, what's the path to freedom?
Spira would say, it's about recognizing our true nature, this boundless awareness that's always present, even when we're lost in thought. He compares it in saying #21 to a screen. He says, be knowingly the inherently peaceful presence of awareness and see that this peace is not dependent upon the condition of the mind, body, or world, just as a screen is not dependent on the content of the words or the quality of the images that appear on it.
I see what you're saying. So no matter what's playing on the screen, the screen itself remains unchanged. So even when our thoughts and emotions are, going haywire, there's this underlying peace that's always available.
Well, exactly. But how do we access that peace? Like, it can't be easy to just, switch off all the noise in our heads.
Right. It feels like a constant battle to quiet the mind. I'm curious, what does Spira suggest? Is it all about, meditation?
Well, meditation can certainly be helpful, but Spira makes it clear that, awareness isn't just something we cultivate on a cushion, He says in saying #28, meditation is what we are, not what we do. The separate self is what we do, not what we are.
So it's not about adding another item to my to-do list.
Right.
It's more about a shift in perspective, like a remembering of what we already are.
Yes. It's about, shifting our perspective, recognizing that this awareness is the ground of our being, not something we need to, acquire or earn.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like we're already home.
Yeah.
We just need to remember that we are.
Right.
So how do we do that? How do we start connected to this awareness throughout our day, not just when we're meditating?
That's the real practice, isn't it? It's about bringing that awareness into every aspect of our lives, even the mundane, everyday stuff. Spira talks about, in saying #126, being knowingly the inherently peaceful presence of awareness in which thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions appear. So he's encouraging us to simply observe these experiences without judgment, allowing them to arise and pass away without getting swept up in the drama.
So instead of resisting those thoughts and feelings, we create space for them, and we observe them with curiosity rather than judgment.
Yes. He even suggests in saying #79 that we don't lose yourself in thoughts and feelings. Let them lose themselves in you.
Oh, I like that.
It's a powerful reframing.
Yeah.
Instead of being consumed by our internal world, we allow it to flow through us without defining us.
That's a beautiful image. It's like those thoughts and emotions become like ripples in a pond.
Yeah.
They come and go, but the pond itself remains still.
And that stillness, that's where the peace resides. It's not the absence of thoughts or feelings, but rather the space in which they arise and dissolve.
Okay, I'm starting to get a clearer picture of how this all fits together. We start by becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
And then we practice observing them without judgment.
Right.
Creating space for them to come and go.
Right.
And in that spaciousness, we discover the peace that's always been there.
Precisely. And as we cultivate this awareness, it naturally extends to our experience of happiness and love.
Okay.
Spira argues that these qualities aren't something we need to seek outside ourselves.
Yeah.
But rather, they're inherent to our true nature.
So we're not actually chasing happiness, we're removing the obstacles to recognizing it.
Exactly. In saying #109, he uses the analogy of the screen and the movie again. He says, looking for happiness in the body, mind, or world is like looking for the screen in a movie. The screen doesn't appear in the movie, and yet at the same time, all that is seen in the movie is the screen. In the same way that the screen hides in plain view, so happiness hides in all experience.
So happiness isn't something to be achieved.
Right.
It's already here, present in every experience, if we know where to look.
Yes. And he makes this even more explicit in saying #241. All experience happens in ourself, pure awareness, and all there is in ourself out of which experience can be made is ourself. Therefore, just as there is nothing present in a movie other than the screen, so there's nothing present in experience other than ourself. Pure awareness is all experience, and all experience is pure awareness.
Wow, I can see how these ideas, they could be truly liberating if we can really grasp them.
Right.
And just like with happiness, Spira sees love as an inherent quality of our true nature.
Yes.
Not something that depends on, like, external conditions or relationships. So it's not about finding the right person or accumulating other stuff.
Right.
It's about recognizing the love that's already present within us.
Okay.
But how does that work in practice?
Well, Spira suggests that love arises naturally when we let go of the illusion of separation.
Okay.
When we recognize our interconnectedness with all things. In saying #129, he says, love is the inherent intimacy of all experience in which a subject and an object are never found. Love is not a special relationship. It is the natural condition of all relationship.
So love isn't something we give or receive. It's like the very fabric of existence itself.
That's how Spira sees it. He goes even further in, saying #165. He says, love is the name we give to experience when it reawakens to its identity with all things, when it recognizes itself in all things as all things.
It's like we're all part of this vast interconnected web of being.
Yeah.
And love is the energy that flows through it.
Mm-hmm.
I see how this understanding could radically change how we approach, our relationships, our work, even how we interact with strangers.
It's about seeing the divine spark in everyone and everything, recognizing that we're all fundamentally connected.
This is a lot to take in, but it's incredibly inspiring. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, but I'm still left wondering, how do we translate these insights into concrete action? Like, how do we move from intellectual understanding to actually living this way?
That's the million-dollar question, and one that we'll explore in greater depth in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, we're back. And I have to say, after that last segment, my mind is buzzing. Spira's take on happiness and love as our inherent nature, it's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
But I'm still, a little fuzzy on the how-to.
Right.
How do we actually live these ideas? How do we bridge the gap between, intellectual understanding and actually embodying this wisdom?
That's the key question, isn't it? It's one thing to, grasp these concepts intellectually.
Yeah.
But it's another thing entirely to integrate them into our daily lives.
Right.
But, luckily, Spira doesn't just leave us hanging with these, lofty ideas.
Yeah.
He offers some pretty practical pointers throughout the Ashes of Love.
Okay, good, because I need some practical pointers. Where do we even begin?
Well, he repeatedly emphasizes the power of simply being aware.
Okay.
Of resting in that open, spacious awareness we were talking about earlier. Remember, that's the backdrop of all experience, like the sky.
Right, the sky analogy.
Behind the clouds.
Yeah. But does that mean I need to spend, hours meditating to access this awareness? I'm not sure I have that kind of time in my schedule.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a common misconception that awareness requires, a special kind of effort or formal practice.
Yeah.
But Spira is actually quite clear about this in saying #28. Meditation is what we are, not what we do. The separate self is what we do, not what we are.
So it's not about adding another item to my to-do list.
Right.
It's more about a shift in perspective, a remembering of what we already are.
Exactly. And that remembering can happen anytime, anywhere. It might start with a formal meditation practice.
Right.
But the real magic is bringing that same quality of awareness into the midst of our daily lives.
So how do we do that? What does it actually look like to be aware while, I'm responding to a stressful email?
Right.
Or, I don't know, stuck in traffic?
Yeah. So Spira offers a helpful suggestion in saying #79. Don't lose yourself in thoughts and feelings. Let them lose themselves in you. Okay. So instead of getting swept away by the current of our thoughts and emotions, we can practice observing them from the spaciousness of awareness.
That's a great image. It's like creating space for those thoughts and feelings to arise and dissolve without defining us.
Yeah.
It's like instead of being the wave, we become the ocean.
I love that analogy. And as we practice this, we start to see the world through new eyes. Remember that analogy of the screen in the movie? Spira revisits it in saying #109. Looking for happiness in the body, mind, or world is like looking for the screen in a movie. The screen doesn't appear in the movie, and yet at the same time, all that is seen in the movie is the screen. In the same way that the screen hides in plain view, so happiness hides in all experience.
So we're not actually chasing happiness. We're simply removing the obstacles that prevent us from recognizing it.
Exactly. He goes even further in saying #241. All experience happens in ourself, pure awareness. And all there is in ourself out of which experience can be made is ourself. Therefore, just as there is nothing present in a movie other than the screen, so there is nothing present in experience other than ourself, pure awareness is all experience, and all experience is pure awareness. It's a radical idea.
Yeah.
But it also points to like a deep sense of peace and freedom.
Wow, those are some powerful words. It's like he's saying that everything we experience, even, the difficult stuff, is ultimately arising from this ground of pure awareness.
And that realization can be incredibly liberating, because it helps us see that we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions, we're not even our circumstances. We are this vast, open awareness that holds it all.
It's like a total paradigm shift. But I have to admit, I'm still, I don't know, a bit wary of sounding too passive.
Right.
Like, if everything is just awareness, what about taking action in the world? Does this mean we just, sit back and let life happen to us?
That's a great question. And I think it's one that a lot of people grapple with when they first encounter these ideas.
Yeah.
But Spira doesn't advocate for passivity. He actually encourages us to, fully engage with life.
Okay.
But from a place of awareness rather than from, a sense of a separate self that's trying to control everything.
So it's about acting from a place of alignment with our true nature.
Yes.
Rather than from a place of, fear or ego.
Yes, exactly. And that's where Spira's idea of the path of inclusion comes in.
Okay.
It's about integrating this understanding of our true nature into every aspect of our lives.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
Well, imagine you're faced with a challenging situation at work.
Okay.
Instead of reacting from a place of fear or anger, you take a moment to connect with that spacious awareness within you. You observe the situation with clarity, you listen to your intuition, and you respond in a way that feels aligned with your values and your highest good.
So it's not about denying our emotions or pretending that, everything is always rosy.
Right.
It's about approaching life's challenges from a place of grounded awareness.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not always easy, of course. It's a practice, a continual process of remembering who we truly are.
Right.
And aligning our lives with that understanding. Spira says in saying, #249, happiness is simply to allow everything to be exactly as it is from moment to moment.
Okay.
That's the essence of it, really. It's about letting go of that constant need to control and manipulate.
Right.
And instead, embracing the perfection of each moment, just as it is.
That sounds incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
But also a bit daunting. What if I'm not always feeling happy and peaceful?
Right.
Does that mean I'm doing it wrong?
Not at all. This isn't about achieving some kind of permanent state of bliss. It's about recognizing that even the difficult emotions are part of the tapestry of life, and they too are arising from this ground of pure awareness. In saying #209, Spira says, enlightenment is the end of one process, thinking and feeling oneself to be a separate, limited self, but the beginning of another. The realignment of the body, mind, and world with this new experiential understanding.
Okay.
It's an ongoing journey, not a destination.
So it's about showing up for life.
Yeah.
With all of its, ups and downs.
Exactly.
But doing so from a place of awareness and acceptance rather than from a place of, resistance and fear.
Exactly.
That's a much more empowering way to approach things.
Absolutely. And as we practice this, we gradually shed those layers of conditioning that keep us separate.
Yeah.
And we discover the boundless love and interconnectedness that lies at the heart of reality.
Wow. What a journey. It's amazing to think that, we've only explored a handful of the 280 sayings in the Ashes of Love.
I know, it's true. There's a lifetime of wisdom to be found in those pages.
Right.
But ultimately, Spira's message is one of hope and possibility. He reminds us that peace, happiness, and love, they're not things we need to acquire, but rather they are our very nature, waiting to be discovered.
So I guess the invitation is to keep exploring, keep diving deeper,
Yeah.
and see how these teachings can transform our lives, from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this incredible exploration of the Ashes of Love. We hope these insights have sparked something within you, a sense of curiosity, a yearning to dive deeper into the mystery of your own being. Until next time, keep those flames burning.